All right, we are going to have a Bible time, and the topic is "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." Um, and we're going to look at Psalm 47. And this is actually a historical psalm that has a lot of significance to our Christian history, as we are going to share together. So before doing that, let's read verses 1 and 3 loudly and clearly, okay? 1, 2, 3. God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. 우리 한국말로도 같이 읽을게요. 1절 보여주세요. 하나님은 우리의 피난처시며 힘이십니다. 어려울 때 언제나 우리를 돕는 분이십니다. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. 그래서 우리는 땅이 흔들려도 산들이 바닷속으로 무너져 내려도 Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble as the waters surge. 바닷물이 넘실거리고 파도가 치고 사나운 바다의 산들이 흔들려도 두려워하지 않을 것입니다. Have you ever felt like a human being standing before overpowering forces? I have felt like that many times when I come in face with the forces of the nature. In verses that we just read, it talks about the power of the earthquakes and the mountains crumbling and the oceans raging and roaring. Some years ago, there were some earthquakes in San Diego. Maybe some of you guys are too young to remember, but I vividly remember this earthquake shaking the apartment that I used to live in. It was one evening, and there was this loud bass noise, and the whole place started to shake for about 10 seconds. Do you guys remember the earthquake drills that you guys learned in schools? I didn't remember that, so I was literally just sitting down, and I started to stand up, and I was just hoping and praying that the earthquakes will pass by. It was one of the most scary experiences that I've ever had, and only thing I could do is that I just stood completely powerless, and only thing that I could do was to hope and pray that it was going to pass away. I don't know if you guys have any experiences where you stood before the mighty force, the overpowering force, and you felt so helpless. But the forces that we feel isn't just confined to the forces of nature. We human beings are social, and we are psychological beings, and there is this pressure that is exerted by other people. When you have to go against many people surrounding you, or when you have to face peer pressure. Have you guys ever given into peer pressure? When you give into the peer pressure, it is probably one of the most difficult things to resist. We all want to fit in. We all want to think and do what other people around us are thinking and they are doing. When everyone is disagreeing with you, it is very, very difficult to figure out what is right from what is wrong. And Martin Luther, I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are thinking, oh, we talked about that a few years ago. We just started the church, and Pastor, are you already running out of the material to talk about? And no, that's not the case. I'm going to go one layer deeper into what Martin Luther was about, because I just think it's so important. The psalm that we just read, Psalm 46, was written by Martin Luther. When the Roman Catholic Church started to sell what is called an indulgence, this is a very important word, so I want you guys to repeat after me, okay? Indulgence. All right. Do you guys know what that means? Do you guys know what it is? Basically, the Roman Catholic Church started to sell these certificates that you can pay money and buy. And if you buy these things, they taught that your family members or your relatives can be released to heaven. Does that sound pretty good? Does that sound good? I mean, it sounds pretty good to me, except that it's just not true, right? It's not found in the Bible. And why did the Roman Catholic Church needed to sell the indulgence? Do you think the Roman Catholic Church was really that poor? No, right? Not really. They wanted to build the greatest church ever, and they needed a lot of money. I'm going to ask you guys a question that is actually really difficult. I bet most of your parents don't even know this, right? Who was the first pope of the Roman Catholic Church? Any brave souls? I will actually buy you something if you know. It's a person from the Bible. It's Peter. Yes. Do you guys know why the Catholics consider Peter to be the first pope? Go for it. Yes, you are Peter, and upon this rock. Yes, Jesus said, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell prevail against it." Right? I'm not going to go into that detail a little too much. The Catholics kind of consider Peter to be the first pope, but we Protestant Christians, I'm going to share it at another time, but we believe that the confession that Peter made, upon that confession that Jesus is the Son of God, that's where the church is standing. But anyways, long story short, so Catholics believed, okay, we're going to take the name of Peter and we're going to build the greatest church. 그래서 여러분들이 유럽 같은 데 가면은 가장 좋고 가장 화려한 건물은 항상 성 베드로 성당이에요. Saint Peter's Basilica, right? And that's the picture that you guys are seeing. Still remains today. Saint Peter's Basilica. 저 성 베드로 성당을 짓기 위해서 they started to sell indulgences, and if you go inside, it's this majestic building. Now, Martin Luther was seeing the scene where 정말 가난한 사람들이 와서 자신의 전 재산 동전 한 입을 넣는데 and the church was building this magnificent building. Is there something wrong with building a building for a church use? No. No. There are many churches. LifeBridge built a church for us to use, right? There's nothing wrong with it. But when we start to put so much money, so much effort, all of everything that we have, and when we start to twist the messages in the Bible, becomes very dangerous. And Martin Luther was reading the Bible and he said, there's something wrong with this whole selling of the indulgence. It's not even in the Bible. And when he spoke out, do you think people just went with what Martin Luther said, or do you think people hated Martin Luther? People hated Martin Luther. And long story short, during the moments of religious reformation, Martin Luther was called before the authorities of the state and the church, and he was given one chance. Hey, Martin Luther, if you recant what you have said, if you deny all of the words you've said and all of the words you have written, we're going to let you live. But if not, you will see what happens to you. And Martin Luther, he said this. He defended for what he believed. He defended for what he has read in the Bible. And in front of the authorities, he said this: "Here I stand, I can do no other. God help me, amen." He was facing tremendous amount of pressure, but yet he was able to stand by the messages of the Bible. And where do you think Martin Luther got his courage from? It was Psalm 46 that we just read today. The night before his trial, he was reading Psalm 46, and he was reading those words, and he was encouraged in his spirit, and he was able to testify at the trial according to his conscience and according to the Bible. And from that verse, the night before, Martin Luther has written this song, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," and that became the song that we know today. I'm going to read just short verses to you, okay? "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. Our helper he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing." It's kind of an old language, but let's read verse 11 together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. "The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress. 만군의 여호와가 우리와 함께 계십니다. 야곱의 하나님은 우리의 피난처이십니다." Let me ask you guys, who is our help? It is our God. Duh, right? It's such a natural answer, but many times we actually rely on other things. We rely on people, money, systems, or even church. But Martin Luther really had to come to the realization of what he was relying on, and it was God, and it was God Himself only. Right now, we don't live in the times where no one's going to put on their trial if we testify on the messages of God, but we still have to ask ourselves, who are we truly, truly relying on? And if you rely on, you will do something. Do you know what that one thing is? You will pray. If you don't have to rely on God, you don't have to pray, right? But if you do rely on God, you will pray. And this week, I am going to challenge you and encourage you guys to, as you spend your week, rely on God. And as a means of doing that, let's make some prayers to God before we go to sleep every day, all right?